Hey everyone, Sawmill Charlie and Big Old Bob is here
Big old
on
Bob.
time.
Most
Welcome
of you
for
early.
another Friday night session here with everybody. Hey, Richard and Jim and let's see, David and Ray, Mike and
Got a
Keith.
house full, 25 people in here.
Oh, there's a whole pile of people in here and everything. And so we got and there's Matt. He's probably out there truck driving right now. All right, let me see if I can put up the link for everybody to jump in on and all that.
So while you're putting the link up, so I made a post today. My son was in a car accident on his way to work this morning and had a compound fracture in his right leg. So shattered his ankle, and the fibia and tibia came through his skin. So compound fracture, and they're doing surgery. I thought it was supposed to be today, but they're doing it tomorrow. I guess they're going to put rods and pins and probably a cage on there. But, you know, as everything is, always on the worst timing, right? So they're expecting a baby. So he's going to be out of work for next several months, probably. So just keep them in your thoughts and prayers if you choose to do so. I'd appreciate it. And, hopefully everything goes good for him. But it's one of those things. Two other cars had a wreck, and they wrecked and then spun into him right as he was going through the intersection. So,
well, they must have really hit him that hard to do all the damage.
Yeah, totaled his truck.
It was a truck, was it?
Yeah. Well, it's a Chevrolet. I mean, I don't know if you call that a truck, but it was.
It depends on what size it was.
Yeah, I think it's 1,500.
But it's just the way it hits, I guess you might say.
And it was an older one, so you think those things were made a little bit more solid than probably the ones today. But yeah, so that's how my day's been today. Waiting to see on that. So
yeah. Well, mine it was hot and hot, not too bad, but now we got it pinned to the top. And
a Mr. Rain. I'm gonna close this door because I hear the video.
All right. Well, we haven't got any rain here yet. We need rain bad.
It's just enough to make it humid, right? It's just misting. So, but it's good to have some.
No, I didn't get a package yet, Bill. I didn't know that you were sending me one.
Surprise package.
Yeah. Does it fit in a mailbox? Maybe it's out in the mailbox. I don't know.
I got that thing through the post office, so every day I get a.
Wait a minute. Let me see. Let me look at his. I can't. It's that's yes, I got my package. It was my hive tool. With
hive tool.
Well, Bill is with he's the owner of I keep saying Susquehanna, but it's Shenandoah Bee Supply Company down in what's the name of the town?
He's a guy that needs some swarm lure.
Down in Woodstock, Virginia. Anybody in the area? Yeah, I got it, Bill, here, and I've used it a couple times. It works well, and all that. We spent time together here about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, when we went down to Woodstock, Virginia. Went down to Alabama and spent about an hour and a half talking to him. He's got all kinds of woodenware, frames, you name it. He's got it. Queens, and that kind of stuff. I forget what the darn insulated hive manufacturer is. He's also going to be
Anel?
at, huh?
Anel?
What is it, Bill? Is it Anel Hives?
Hive IQ, Anel.
Yeah, he was at Nobby this past year. Anel.
Not
And
going. Yeah, no. Not going to Nobby hurt my business this year.
is that right?
One where it's but you know, when you have a death in the family, you got to do what you got to do. So,
Right.
unfortunately, that's the way it rolls.
But no, he gave the Hive tool is it's one of them. It's a like sort of like a J hook, but it's I think it's 15 inches long. Gives you great um, leverage, especially when I'm popping 3 boxes at one time from the bottom box up. And it's the one that has a crook on. It has a crook one way and a crook the other way. And what that smaller crook is for is kind of like a rocker on a rocking chair. That's what it rests on. And I find it to be better than the normal J hook because the J hook usually has sort of a flat spot,
Right.
and it'll actually dig into a plastic frame a little bit easier if things are really tight. Hey Shane, and that's what I liked about it. Now I am not using it, you know, if I'm doing something small inspection, I'll use my normal J hook. But if when it comes to doing heavy popping of the boxes and stuff like that, or I'll even use it, you know, like you say, do a little bit of inspections and everything.
Right.
And it does a great job and all that. And like say he has those, he has anything you want. I think it's got 10,000 square foot facility there, right off the Interstate 81. And you know, he's got a lot of storage area in that building, and where like queen excluders and extra boxes. People were picking up, you know, hundred. You know, like I think one guy was there. He knew me from my channel, and I think he bought like 110 frames or more. And one,
283 in Virginia. Is that on the northern side or the southern side?
it's on Interstate 81, going towards
on 81. Okay, I was
on
thinking
81, going towards Roanoke, Virginia.
Okay.
He's Woodstock is let's see, it's north of Harrisonburg, and I think it's north of Harrisonburg, I think. But and then something that he does in his local area is actually he does deliveries to beekeepers and stuff like that on Mondays and Tuesdays, I think it is. And which I find that quite interesting. And he's an independent dealer and stuff like that. And between Harrisonburg and Winchester,
that's my favorite beekeeping supplies. The smaller independent guys. Those
totally independent. He was telling me where I won't mention the one of the main bee suppliers, you know, out there. He was a dealer for them, and then they tried to.
Well, they suck. We all know they suck.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they tried to. They were trying to. Well, they did put one over him, and he said, "You can take your dealership and you know what."
Yeah.
And now he's got independent woodenware manufacturer doing his stuff along with frames and nice looking stuff. And he had, you know, like a guy wanted to get a thing, a dozen queen excluders. Yeah, no problem. Go right in the back here. And Bill had a busted wing on his hand. And I said, well, let me go back here and help you carry all that heavy weight stuff, you know, and did all that. And so he's been growing. He went from a small little building next door to a much larger building. And he's doing quite well. Something was interesting. We were talking about queens. A lady who happened to be there getting some queens. And Bill, have you got your video yet?
Speaking of queens, I know I told you I gave one a car wash in my mite shake the other day. So I accidentally caught a queen in the mite wash and
yeah,
gave her the what for.
Yeah, Bill had an 800 square foot place. Then he went to 10,000, I think it was. It's a nice, sizable building. But Bill, have you got your video yet? Maybe if you wanted to come on tonight, come on in. But all right, doesn't have it at the house. Okay. Oh, you got to get it to the house. You got to be able to jump on here and hang out with the rest of us guys.
If you want,
but he was telling me, I had thought about this. I didn't think it was possible. Oh yeah. Tell me, Bill, what was the breed of queen that you were telling me about? I can't remember it. It wasn't a common breed, but, and all, but anyway, he has a friend or a partner. I'm not sure just how that works, but, where they're grafting queens and he helps them. They're Latshaw queens. Ever heard of them?
I haven't heard of them. No.
All right. They were bred by a guy, I'll say back in the 1940s, he was telling me. And they, unbeknownst to him back then, they do have a slight Russian trait in there. Good honey producers. They're good gentle queens for, like he said, the first couple of years. Bill said Dr. Lashaw in Ohio, I'll say bred them out. But he's got a thing where they have a tent, well, not a tent, a mesh, kind of like a bird apiary, you know, where they can have birds inside, but they can't fly out, but they can fly around. Well, this thing's designed for bees, and they have the drone hives inside the mesh tent.
So they can't. So they made their own congregation area inside.
They made their own DC area with inside this structure, and they released the virgins in there, and they can actually watch them get mated. And or at least that's the way I understood it. Mosquito netting. And that's how they actually, what would you call it? Instead of artificial insemination, they do it old school way, but they can actually, you know, make sure that they hit the right drones that they want them to mate with. I found that quite interesting. And he's got a company that's making woodenware. They have instead of having the box joint, they're actually dovetailed joinery on the stuff. And that way, like I say, with the netting and all, it controls the mating and controls the genetics and stuff like that and all. And you don't have $10,000 worth of instruments there trying to do all that stuff and all that. And so we talked about all that kind of thing. And he's got bee suits and stuff. He also, like you said, he'll be set up at Nobby this coming year. And so we had a really good time and everything. And I haven't been out in the bee yard. Of course, it's been hot all this week, you know, and everybody knows that. Hey, Brian from Colorado and Dead Ant, Mike and DC.
I went out one time, did a couple washes, and caught a queen and gave that up. After I washed the queen, I'm like, "Yep, nope, done."
I went out earlier this week. I was planning on doing some extracting of honey, but I went out and I did multiple tests on different hives with my refractometer. A lot of uncapped frames in the supers. There was some cap frames. I pulled honey from a cap frame. It was like 18.5% moisture, which is out of my comfort zone. I like it 17.5, between that and 16. I pulled samples out of multiple uncapped frames, and it was running right around the 19% moisture content, which is too wet. So I gave that idea up. And then I guess it was Tuesday night on your channel. We were talking about ventilation and stuff, and talking about where I had some of my newer hives that I had put in entrance reducers, and they had 4 to 5 inch wide entrances. The hives have actually gotten, quite big, and they are actually making me a super honey. I was quite surprised for, from a late start.
Right.
And so I pulled those entrance reducers out to try to give them more airflow within the hive to maybe
let some of the hot air out of the top.
let the hot air out of the top, hopefully dry that honey down for me. And then I got to thinking about it years ago when I first started. I actually had, I think there was 6 ventilation shims where you put them up on top of your inner covers, and it kind of makes a screened in porch for your hive.
Right.
And so the hot air can go out the vent hole in the top of your inner cover. And I also had bought this year a couple of inner cover screens where they were just solid open screens. And I put them on and put some blocking on top of the screen. So it raised the telly lid up, quarter inch at least. And give it more airflow. I'm hoping that will help. If it doesn't, then I'll have to set up my dehumidification unit down in the basement with a, plastic drape over a table along with a fan and a dehumidifier, and take, let's say 8 to 10 supers off at a time and dry them down and extract them. And then, of course, and also test them before I do extract them to get them
Right.
down to acceptable moisture levels. Some people have been, saying it was 16%, and others have said the same thing about honey supers being uncapped, a lot of them uncapped. I can't tell you why myself. I mean, of course, we have had a lot of rain. Maybe the moisture content's high because of that in the nectar sources. And of course, this is the first week we really had a lot. Usually it's the humidity is what causes this problem, but we haven't had any really humid days up until this week. And then most of our summer, or as I call it, has been, let's say, 80 degrees with low humidity. I would have thought this stuff would have been ready.
Right.
Sean says his was 16.5. If mine was 16.5, I'd have pulled it right away. No problem. And that's what I use. I like the 16.5 is what I do, like 16.5 to 17.
I added 5 more gallons to Marcia today.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to have to explain who Marcia is. She's your new girlfriend.
Marcia's the creamer now. Brad said I talk about it so much. It's like the Brady Bunch. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. So that's the new nickname for my creamer is Marcia. So I put 5 more gallons into the creamer. So I think I've got, I don't know, I probably got 14, maybe 13 gallons in there now. So
and how full is it now? You're getting feedback.
About half. Shouldn't be. I don't even have YouTube open at all.
I got this shut down. Yeah, I mean, you're more about, I don't know much about creaming.
Me neither. It's my first time using a creamer. So it's spinning 15 minutes every hour. So we'll see how that goes. But it seems to be doing the trick. So I just haven't, I struggle with higher temperatures, right? And not lower temperatures. So when I do something like cream honey, then it's a matter of if it's too hot to crystallize effectively. But it seems to be doing okay. At least it was before I added stuff in it, so it's going to take some time now to get it going.
Dan there from DNN he was saying, when the flow ends, that's it. If it's ain't capped, it ain't gonna get capped. Well, probably. Um, I don't really, that's fine. That's the less cappings I have to deal with. But I will. And Bill wants to know, yes, you had to have seed honey.
Yep. I had some from my other batch that I started. And I might call Bill this week coming up.
And all that. But
oh my gosh. Brian, don't get me started. We had someone saying that once you add flavor, it's no longer creamed honey. It's honey syrup or it's blend or something. I was just like, it's creamed honey with flavoring in it. So whatever you want to call that, to me, it's creamed honey. To everybody I'm teaching about creamed honey, that's what it is here too. But it seems to be doing all right. I just, added some more in it to make it a little bit deeper in there. So maybe it would do a little bit better.
Right.
I still have 15 gallons out in the honey house if I need some, but sold 3 pounds of honey today, 2 pounds of honey yesterday.
Yeah, I sold a customer came in from Baltimore City, and they drove from Baltimore City up past my house here to a farm that sells locally grass-fed raised beef, and they bought that. And then they seen my honey sign. Then they came and got a 3-pound jar of honey.
Mm-hmm.
So,
damn, it's funny. Where's the scientific studies on creamed honey? I know, right? We can't do it. It's illegal. But yeah, it's just been one of those weeks, man. I've been in the bee yard, I think, twice this week. And that was it. Just some mite checks. And then, today I was planning to, but then my son had his accident. So I didn't know if I was going to have to run up to Charlotte or not. So it's, with that, they said, well, he's in the ER. Only 2 people can go in at a time. And his mom and his grandma and his wife were there and probably everybody around Charlotte. So it had been hard to get in anyway. So they said, you just wait till he's in a room and then it'll be easier. So this might be going up there tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Might be in the Charlotte area.
Right. But
actually, I did find some mites in my newer colonies that just started this year. They had the worst mite infestations, but most of them were at 1%, 1.5%, and except for the newer ones that were nukes that I only put a piece of Appy tablet on it early in the year, and then just put Appy tablet on it. So it should start working as before, like the other one. So we'll see. I'm going to stick with it. Part of me was like, well, I'm going to treat it. And then I'm like, nope, I'm not going to treat it. If I treat it, it'll be later in the year where I can say I gave a whole year of nothing but Appy tablet, and we'll see how it works out. But right now, everybody still looks good, except for the one that's now queenless because I washed her. But I'm just leaving them. They should go ahead and make a new queen, and it'll be a solstice queen. Look at that. Perfect timing. So, DC might have came late. My son was on his way to work this morning, and 2 other cars had a wreck, and when they collided, they spun into him, and he had a compound fracture in his ankle, and his fibia and tibia came through his skin and his legs. So he's up there. They're going to be doing surgery tomorrow and probably rods and pins in his leg. And, he's going to be laid up for several months, which, of course, couldn't be at a worse time because he's got a new baby on the way. It's supposed to be here in December, and he's going to be laid up for the next several months. So,
let's see. I'm looking here. Matt wants to know, is $50 for a queen expensive? I think it is, but that seems to be going between 40 and 50 for a mated queen seems to be the kind of going rate.
But that's not the problem. If you're buying it from somebody and they're shipping it, that's it's about the same price. It's probably gonna end up running around $100 for
Bill
one
says
queen.
it's a good price if it's a well-bred queen. And how do you
Well,
know?
you never know until you get it.
Know. That's a crapshoot on that, unless you know your queen supplier.
And even
Hey,
that's
Laura.
still a crapshoot sometimes.
Yeah. Hey, Laura. Good to see you. And all that. But yeah, and then let's see, what else did I do? I was, one day I went out and I was testing honey, and then the next day after we had talked, I think Tuesday night or something like that, I went out there about 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning before it was still hot, but I figured give them a break for far as ventilation goes throughout the rest of the day, and all that. So I was 2 days out there in the bee yard, but that didn't take long. It was take the lid off, put the shim on, and put it back in, put the lid back on for most of them.
Right.
And Bill's like Bill said there, Gardner, that you have to know who you're dealing with and all that. So that's like anything, you have to kind of find if you can find a breeder in your area that, has a lot of good a lot of good positive feedback from different area beekeepers in the area. That's great if you're able to find something like that. If you try to get one shipped to you, I don't know. It's like one of the folks here was saying, it's so hot right now that I'm
My
not sure.
bees just want to hang out. They don't even want to really fly too much. They're just chilling out.
And let me put this up. Yeah. Bill Matz, he's up in New York State. So you want a
Strong. It's typo.
strong thing. Huh?
That's what we all live for. Try to get some good queens.
Yeah, I was watching Brad's video from up today where he's putting seconds on, and he got into those hives that one was a queen was sighted, and it was a drone layer. And then what I was interesting is he was pointing out the brood pattern. And here we got nice cat brood, but there was no eggs or anything else around it at all. So you didn't see all three stages of brood to indicate that you had a viable queen. And then there was the other one that there was no queen in that hive. And then the next one door to it was a queen that was a drone layer, where poor mating, I presume. And I don't know, they had a brood pattern, but it was really shotgun scattered holes all over the place, and there were some drone cappings instead of regular worker bee cappings here, there, and everywhere. So he pinched her and hopefully combined the two, and then found a frame of eggs. Hopefully he's got enough time for them to make a queen.
He shared a video with us earlier today. He's got a little bit of he's got a black bear lurking around one of his out yards.
Oh yeah.
I said, did it get to his hives? He said, not yet. So hopefully it stays out of them.
So if anybody wants to come on in. The link is up. If Bill wants to come, but he doesn't have a video, can he do that with the microphone, as long as he has a mic?
Do what?
If somebody wants to come in without a video camera, can they do that with?
Yeah, you'll just see their little emoji circle. Should let them in.
Yeah, Bill, if you want to, you can click the link. I know you don't have a camera, but as long as you got a microphone, whether it be a laptop mic or whatever, it should let you in. You'll have to click on the link, which takes you to StreamYard, and you got to, I think, fill out your what name you want to do, and then you can put in there Shenandoah Bee um, Supply Company as a secondary name or something like that. He said you'll try it. All right, well, come on in. Hey, Doug. Honey supers on 7 yards and 1 to go, starting to see clover flowering. Well, Doug, I'll tell you something. I was talking to my son, and you had asked, had I figured out what I was going to do about a honey pump. And I mentioned it to my son, and he said, well, what you need is a Milwaukee transfer pump. And it's an M8. Well, it takes an 18-volt battery. It's for water. It's got it's real glass, sight glass over top of the impeller, and you can hook up 3/4 inch like water hoses to it, or make your own coupling, out of clear plastic. Oh, there we go. Hey, you got a video.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm using my phone.
All right, that's cool. All right,
Hey,
everybody. And so anyway, I looked into it, and $229 compared to $1,100. Of course, it's not going to be the volume of Hilco's transfer pump, but
well,
that's all.
Will it transfer honey being as thick as it is?
Well, I'm saying my honey's going to be in a hot box, and it's going to be, pourable liquid to get it to go through a sieve. And
what kind of pump was it, Charlie?
It was a Milwaukee transfer water pump.
Oh, okay.
I was looking for something that would pump it out of a 5-gallon. If you had 60-pound bucket of honey, and you transferring it over to your bottling tank, instead of me trying to lift all that and messing up with my shoulders and stuff like that, I thought, well, maybe if I got a pumping system, but I just I can't see $1,000.
Well, Tractor Supply has a air powered diaphragm pump with a 1 inch inlet or 1.5 inch inlet outlet that works pretty good. I've heard people talk about those. Then at Nobby last year, there was a guy down there from Louisiana, I believe, that was selling pumps, the diaphragm pumps. They seem to work better for the the thicker liquids.
Right. This one here had a nitrile impeller in it, which you can buy. I seen a couple of the videos. We were just looking at them. The impeller you can buy. The other guys were saying it wasn't used for gasoline and oil and all that kind of stuff. And these other guys said, well, guess what? That's what we used it for, and it works just fine, and people were saying about it deteriorating the impeller. And he said, I got an extra impeller and hasn't deteriorated anything, and I leave it contaminated, with whatever they're pumping, but that was just something. And I found it a reasonably priced unit. Now, if you got to buy the battery, you're up around $300, $100 more for the battery. So how's everything down in Woodstock, Virginia, down at the supply house?
Well, the bees are getting a little testy, but it's hot. It's been hot for a couple weeks down here now, and flow's almost over.
Yeah. Here, the flow, I kind of consider the flow over. But on the other hand, hey, Lynn, okay. And Lynn's one of our president of the Greater Baltimore Beekeepers Association. let's see what I was going to tell you. Oh, I had a couple patches of a Canadian thistle out there that was starting to bloom a little bit, and they were all over that. The bees were, give them something to do. And there's a there's trees that the state had planted on their right of way over here. And I don't know what it is. They kind of look like Formosa leaves, but there's like a long pod looking thing. I haven't been over there close enough to see what kind of a bloom of a tree that is, or a bush, whatever they call it. I was wondering whether they were on that. So, but by July 1, everything should be totally done with around here. Everything as far as the flow goes and all that. So that's why I'm just kind of waiting until that kind of happens now. Hopefully it'll dry the honey out.
Yeah. I'm hoping this heat's going to dry what we got left out.
That's what I was hoping for too. That's why I put those ventilation shims and stuff on. So, but
David asked, was it sumac?
maybe that, it did look like a sumac top that I'm thinking of, a sumac like farmer's plant, or maybe it's not sumac. I'm thinking of, oh, you lost him. Yeah, that's what that is. Might be sumac. Might be. Oh, we're back.
You're thinking maybe a sorghum too.
Sorghum is what I'm thinking of, but it had a head like sorghum, and then the other guy said it might be sumac. And I think, I'm thinking to myself, maybe that's what it is. Might be. And I'll have to take a picture of it, or maybe look it up on the. I'll have to get over. It's across the road, and I'd had time to go over and look at it. Sumac's purple cone bloom. Okay, I'll have to look at it, Dan. I don't know what it's purple. I spied it from a way of a distance. So what's happening down in the Shenandoah Valley right now? Anything?
I'm getting ready to start teaching some classes from the fall, beginners classes. Everybody's busy with their bees right now, trying to decide, am I going to take honey or am I going to let it sit? But we almost have to take it by the 15th of July because of the spotted lanternfly.
Exactly. That's where I gotta get it off there by, like you say, right around the first, because of spotted lanternfly. The nymphs have already started around here now.
They're already started here too.
And all that stuff. So, unless you want it contaminated.
Yeah. So I don't want spotted lanternfly honey. It's not the taste of the honey that I'm looking for.
Yeah, but there are some folks out there, they say they like it. I leave it for the bees to use through the wintertime.
Yeah.
And that saves me on my sugar bill.
Oh yeah. Big time.
I cut my sugar bill by 500 pounds, I think, in the last couple of years per year and stuff like that.
Yeah, we feed fructose after we pull honey, and to get them up to the fall, and then let them go on their stores.
Yeah, I start feeding about a week or so after Labor Day. 2-to-1 sugar water, along with some Apis biologics stuck in there. Hopefully, I'll have a rocking hive in the springtime this year. Hopefully not I hopefully have a complete turnaround compared to what I did this year for sure. Hopefully with the queen thing. How late do you have queens, mated queens for sale?
We should have them this year up through the end of August.
Okay.
We should. It depends on the weather. Depends on the heat right now. We haven't even got any cells in the hives right now because of the heat.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed. You can see some of the hives that I got behind me there. That was an earlier picture this year. That my bees will kind of there might be a little bit of activity during the main noontime Day area. But the real activity really kind of cranks out about 3:30 in the evening, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It seems like the sun is not as bad, and
Yep.
that's when they really take off and start. And I was out there a day or two ago. I just went out there in a pickup truck and was just kind of looking at them, and then looking down the line, kind of looking for the bee pattern. Were they swirling around like that, like a bunch of robbers? Or were they kind of going out and they were going this way and that way? And so I said, well, they must be on something. And I have opened them up, like doing some of that testing. And a lot of folks, some of the folks, maybe it depends on the personal opinion, but I didn't really see, even though I had the top open and I pulled a frame, I'm taking samples and doing a refractometer reading. I didn't see the robbing sensation. Now, of course, I'm sure if I stuck a super out there and let it just sit there for 15 minutes, you'd have it for sure. But
Oh yeah.
I didn't have the robbing like some people said they were having in other locations in the area. And all that.
I haven't seen any of it with our bees yet, but I'm sure it's starting to occur.
Okay. Yeah, it's hot and humid and whatever.
Yep. Haymaking weather.
Yeah, well, we're done all that. We got that done 2 week. Yeah, 2 week. Yeah, it was Friday. Last Sunday was Father's Day. The weekend prior to that, we finished up getting all that done, or that week.
Yeah, we finished up Father's Day weekend.
Yeah, we had the weekend prior. I guess let's see, the field right behind me there. I got about 1,800 square bales off of that, and then I guess that was the Sunday before that Father's Day weekend, and then that middle of the week I got another location at 93 round bales. Hey, Steve, and all that. So and Dan Weaver, you're doing second cutting already? We ain't gonna have no second cutting if it don't rain. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. We're going to get one cut in here, and that's going to be about it.
So,
Unless it's late in the fall.
yep. What else to? So,
Guys,
so
I
you
think
got
I'm gonna hop off for the evening. Appreciate you. And
what, Bob?
I'm gonna hop out for the evening. Gonna give my son a call, see what's going on over there, and
Coming back?
I don't know if I'll come back tonight, but I'll see y'all on the next stream if I don't.
Well, Bob, I hope everything goes well with your son.
Thank you. And I'll probably be giving you a call about some swarm lure here.
Okay.
Maybe for next year, if not this year.
Okay.
All right, brother. You have a good one. Thank you.
You too.
All right. Hey, Lee. So that's what's happened with me and all. And now you got, what is it, Anel Lives or
Anel?
Anel?
Mm-hmm.
And they're insulated, and they're not styrofoam. I call them styrofoam, but it's polystyrene, I guess you would call it. They got like a hard plastic or something outer shell, don't they?
They're 100% virgin food grade plastic with a closed cell insulation in between them.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, a lot of people think the plastic leaches. Well, this virgin food grade plastic that all your beekeeping frames, your foundation, and your boxes are made of doesn't leach. Recycled plastic is what leaches.
You're talking, and when you say leach, what do you mean? Gases?
No, it's the chemicals that leach out of the plastic, like your plastic water bottles.
Right.
Yeah. They're recycled. So there's chemicals in that plastic that leach out of it and into the water if it sits in it over a certain amount of time. Not a scientist, don't claim to be, but it's that these hives were tested for 3 years before they were allowed to be sold in the US. And they discovered that they don't leach. So
right. And all.
And it's the hives themselves. We had one last year going into winter. Wasn't a real big cluster. And we started feeding in January, and we noticed that, hey, this hive is growing and it's not clustered.
Mm-hmm.
It never did cluster through the winter because you could take a infrared and put on it and you see a big red square. And it came out of the winter stronger than what it went into the winter with. So they worked through the winter.
When you were feeding, did you do like a sugar cake type thing or liquid or what?
Fondant.
Fondant.
Yep.
Okay. So did you, I guess you're feeding prior to the winter. I mean, some sugar water or whatever.
We fed T55 syrup up until right around Thanksgiving when it got cold, got below 50 degrees.
Right.
And then we took all the liquid feed away from them and let them go on stores. And we checked them right after Christmas to see where the clusters are at. And then if we need to, we start feeding fondant then. And we get the Golden Barrel fondant out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's my club that I'm president of, Golden Barrel. We get that same thing.
Yeah,
the factory's right up there in Pennsylvania, not too far from us. An hour's drive or so.
Yeah,
it's either you could buy it by the pallet. We were buying it by the pallet, and then I think it was last year. Hey, Kathy, and Golden Barrel DC is the brand name of the font. It comes in a box. It's 50 pounds.
Yes.
And all that. And but you had to buy a pallet load. And then one year it was hard to get. And I think it was last year before, I guess, maybe. And we started going. I think Golden Barrel was hooked up with the restaurant store.
It is.
So we actually went through the restaurant store, and which is a wholesale restaurant supply house. You have to be a member of it in order to buy from it.
Yep.
And we kept using different emails to get that what do you call it, guest pass or whatever.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And hey Barry. And it's called, is it the restaurant store or restaurant? It must be restaurant supply chain. It's a chain, I presume a chain store.
Yeah, it's a chain all over southern Pennsylvania, I think. Because they've got stores in Lancaster, York, Harrisburg.
I could go to Baltimore, but I'd rather go north an hour to Lancaster, and where I know I'm not going to get robbed or anything else.
Yeah.
And it's a much prettier drive anyway out there in the country and stuff. But anyway, our club would buy it through them. That was one of the things, and that's where I get my bag sugar, and I buy it. So, let's say 50 bags on a pallet or something like that. I forget how many bags we were getting. It's about 1,200 pounds of sugar, and that kind of thing. And the price, I'll say, some people when they're, at that time, they're always checking Walmart prices and stuff like that. And yes, the restaurant store might not have quite the cheapest price as far as compared to Walmart, but when I can go up there and I have all 50-pound bags and it's all on a pallet and they just set it in my truck and I'm done, and I don't have to, you go to a Walmart, they bring sugar in for certain times of year, and that's canning season, and bee season is at the tail end of canning season. And usually you can't find the 25-pound bags of sugar from Walmart.
Well, if you find them around here and you buy 4 or 5 of them, they look at you funny.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. That's what she said. And hey, Tar Heel, Randy. And yeah, so that's where I get my sugar from because it's more convenient that way. And all that. Yeah,
Yeah,
the rest.
we tried Pro Sweet one year, and it was expensive. And
I
we bought a tote of it, and it was expensive.
Yep. I
And
have I have a partial. I bought about a half or a three-quarters tote of it several years ago. I tried it one winter, and I had went from buckets to a tank system on my truck where I pump it off. Of course, Pro Sweet is too thick for that, and I had went back to buckets. And after my shoulders were killing me, I'm like, I can't do this. Now, the one good thing about Pro Sweet, I still have some and I still use it. If you're trying to feed amongst a bunch of other strong hives, like let's say some mating boxes or something, the bees can't smell it and they won't attack and rob that little small hive out and stuff.
right.
That's the good thing about it. So I still keep a little bit of it, but I rely on mixing my, I have a 55-gallon honey drum that I set up as a mixing unit, and I can mix up 40 gallons. Um, and that's what I have in my tank. I have a 40-gallon tank on the truck and all that. Yeah. And you got DC, you're out there in Washington State, I believe it is. He's got 400 pounds of scrap sugar saved up and another 400 pounds prepaid for from Harris. I don't know where that's out in Washington State, I'm sure.
I'm sure it is. Sounds like he's running a lot of hives.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Washington, yeah, that's what he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different area out that way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, as far as around here, we do have Domino's in Baltimore, but they will sweep that spilt sugar, I'll call it, on the floor back into the process until they and then reprocess it. That's what that's told me. And
Wow.
then there's one guy was talking about, we were talking about EPA and stuff like that. And it's the warehouse that when a ship comes in with raw sugar before it's processed into human consumption sugar, it's just, I don't know whether it's in bins or bags. I think it's probably in bins. And hey, Jeff, good to see you. Hey, Lisa. Anyway, it has to go through duty and all that stuff and then get processed and stuff like that. But I had a friend of mine, her daughter or somebody lived up on Federal Hill, which is up on a hill above the Domino plant. And I think they were getting like 150 pounds of honey off. Well, guess where they're getting their honey from? It's all from the Domino plant.
Yeah, they are.
So it's sugar water honey all summer long and everything.
Wow. Sometimes that sugar water honey can help.
Yeah. And Tracy says if he's less than 20 pounds a year, where are you at, Tracy? What state are you in? And all, unless you must have a lot of nectar sources in your area for a long period of time.
Well, I know here in Virginia, we've got, you've got your whole climate for the East Coast, but we've got 3 or 4 subclimates. Like Tidewater area is a subtropical area. And you get down on the Carolina border and some of those counties down there in Virginia, they grow cotton. So the bees are on the cotton in the fall. and there's not much of a winter. So they're going right into another nectar flow, a month or two later, because the winters are non-existent down there. And then, of course, Northern Virginia and the Valley, they're kind of similar. We have the cold stretches, and then we have, like last year, I had dandelions in February, but we have that ebb and flow in the spring of the warm and the cold. And then Southwest Virginia has a similar climate, but it's a little bit longer. And when you get out towards West Virginia in the mountains, that colder air it hangs around a lot longer. So there's a lot of subclimates here in Virginia.
Yeah, I know myself and my father used to comment, being farming and everything, that it seems like the Shenandoah Valley, they were always making hay or something 2 weeks prior to what we're doing here in Maryland for some reason. I don't know what it's a warmer. They're always 2 weeks ahead of us on certain crops and stuff like that, and all that kind of thing. But where we're trying to get started, you guys have already cut, let's say, hay or something like that. Tracy's in Ontario.
Oh, they have a very short season up there.
Yeah. Brad from Faith Apiaries, he's in, well, this is June, and basically their flow is just starting.
Yep.
And he actually, like Ian up there was showing this week, they had a hailstorm up there. I was wondering what it was because I couldn't quite make it out while he was in the truck. And Brad said it was a hailstorm and all. And it's like amazing. Here we are in a heat wave, and they're still in winter. And then Doug Longman, who was on here, he's up in Saskatchewan, and he posted some pictures up there where I think it was either this week or last week, here they got snow on the ground up there, where it melted, and then it put a couple inches or so on the ground, which was a lot, or not that much for them because they get feet, but
yeah,
that time of the year.
A couple inches around here paralyzes everything.
Yeah. And then Matt there, he's up in New York. He's in Western New York. He doesn't have to feed much either. Obviously, it's probably because of his what's growing in his area and stuff. That plays so much. But anyway, that's what's, some of the different things are happening and all, but
yeah, it gets interesting around here during the spring and summer.
Sure.
That's like this year. I didn't get all my nukes out until, what was it, end of May? Middle to end of May, because of the cold weather coming and going.
Hey, JW.
Good evening.
How's everything out in Illinois?
Hot and dry right now.
Hot and dry.
I just come in from watering my tomatoes in the garden. And,
I thought you were watering your bees.
I also I don't know if you've noticed it. I don't know if you happened to tune in last night. I've been on a mission.
No, I'm one of the founding members of the Baltimore Beekeepers, and we had a club meeting last night through Zoom where we had one of the what would you call it, science guys from the University of Maryland talking about reading the hives and figuring out what you're looking at in the hive. which was pretty darn good. A good PowerPoint program, and looking at brood patterns and what's going on here. Recognizing the problems, before they get too bad, and recognizing strength of your beehives and things of that nature. I mean, we have a fair amount of newer keepers on the club, and it helps them out and stuff. And even me, I can always, you always pick out something in them kind of things. That's why. So, but no, I didn't get to come on last night. I was doing that, and it was after 9 o'clock or better. We didn't get started till a little late and everything. So what happened on the let's see, what does Ricky call his channel?
Horizontal hives.
Horizontal hives.
Yeah.
That's Ricky Rourke. Was at Nobby this past year. He had those horizontal beehives.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
He had the one that had the lightning bolts, as I call it, on there. That pretty one. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a Thursday night chat and all that, but he's on vacation, and JW here and VIA has Melissa and
Lee Coimbe.
We're putting it on.
Yeah. Lee kind of runs it when Ricky's not around. I just get on there I've been on a mission this week. I've been fur trapping. I'm a coon trapping. I've been on the warpath. I've been live trapping.
You got what? You got about 5 of them already this year?
I've got 9 in 3 nights.
Oh.
And they're just
the raccoons are killing his hive, or not,
No, they're not bothering my beehives. They're eating all my cat feed.
Okay.
I'm senile enough in my old age. I'm feeding barn cats, and them suckers was eating about 40 pounds a week. I put it out for the cats, and the coons would eat it all. So every so often I have to go I'm getting mellow in my old age. I should kill them, but I don't. I've got some property about 6 miles away from my main bee farm up in the river bottoms, and I take them up there and turn them loose on the river. So I've been doing that. It was hot here. I actually had 3 nukes as getting so loaded. I had to go into them and break them down and get them in, give them some more room. I put them in bigger boxes, and they weren't too happy with me. One evening I waited late. I thought it'd be cooler. That was a bad idea on my part. All you beans are usually pretty calm, but they wasn't too calm. That was Monday evening I did that. And so yesterday I went back in and I held off and broke them down and got them all moved. They weren't too bad yesterday.
Well, when you got into them late, was it like closer to sunset or?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They were all the old gripey ones that come home to roost, and they wouldn't want me to mess with them. They was bearded some too. It's pretty hot. It's 87 here right now.
Yeah, it's 80 degrees right here. What it says on the calendar thing.
Yeah, I believe today, comfort wise, for the individual, I believe this was our hottest day. Temperature wise, it wasn't that much hotter, but it didn't no breeze, and it was quiet and humid, and wasn't very comfortable today. So I didn't try to work bees today. I went into that. I did, and I bragged on it, and I will brag. This is unsolicited on Ricky's. I got one of Ricky's horizontal hives. Actually picked it up at Nobby. I don't know. And I was a little apprehensive about working it. But I put a package in there in it was late March, and it's a 33 framer, and I've got 28 frames of it that's just packed. I just been continually expanding it, and
yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with them, but every time I talk to people, they seem like that they they don't want to go horizontally. I don't know whether it's a different of learning how to manipulate those type of hives or what.
I haven't had any trouble. I've just got he's got the little porch entrances. It's about it's just on one end. The way I had him fix this when I wanted some queen rearing places. And I've got a 3-frame and two. I've got 1 3-frame and 2 2-frame just to do, queens in, and the rest of it I left open. And they've expanded clear out to the. I actually went through the open area, and I'm opening up the nukes now. I'll have bees. I feel like by fall I'll have bees in the full 33 frames of the thing.
Right.
Well, that's good. That's great.
They've really expanded and growing, and I've got plenty of nectar and plenty of brood in. I had there's 9 brood frames in what I've got of it, so they're expanding. I thought this is my first experience, and I'm no expert on them either. But this week is the first time I've actually went through and pulled every frame, and there's bees on every, and then I added 6 more frames to it. So
now Matt, Matt, he did a 5-frame walkaway split in April, and now they're in 3 deeps.
Yeah.
And just foundation only, so that's doing real well. Matt's up around New York, and I forget what the town is in the area and all that. Hey, Lee, 8-frame deeps, what he's in. I know that's what Tom and Melissa, they run 8-frame equipment out there in St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, I do primarily.
So what you do? 8-frame.
I've still got. I'm trying to go to all 8 frames. I've still got 10 frames left, but the rest of them I've gone to 8 and I'm using 5s for nukes primarily. I don't plan to use the 2 and 3 framers for mating nukes. I'm going to use 5 frames and heck with them. That's too much equipment and too many different boxes and all that. So I'm trying to narrow down.
Right. And Brian out there at Flower Street in Colorado, he uses 8-frame deeps. There's a guy I'm helping right now that does 8-frame over here, and I didn't have the experience with it last year. And one thing that I have noticed, and I haven't helped him that much this year because of time constraints, is that, of course, you're 20% less than 10-frame, but it seems like to me that you really need. I think that the beehive, if you're doing single brood chamber with honey and everything, it seems like in an 8-framer that instead of the brood chamber, when you have the 2 8-frame deeps, that I've noticed in 10-frame that the queen will walk up into the top of the hive, 10-frame box, lay up 5 to 6 frames dead center, and then store all your honey off to the right and the left, but never want to go up into the honey supers. And then when that brood, emerges, then they want to backfill all that, and you never seem to get any honey. And I'm thinking maybe in an 8-frame box, if you got 2 double deeps, that you're not going to quite have that problem.
That's what I use. I use and I'm certainly not an expert, but I use the 2 double deeps, then I go above them with my supers, medium supers.
And they're going up into the honey super.
Very much so.
But it seems like to me that, you talk about the nest cavity, the size of the cavity, like in trees and stuff like that. And I'm wondering whether or not a double deep 8-frame setup is closer to the cubic feet or cubic inch cavity space, let's say inside of a tree or something like that, to where they will go up, into the honey supers. You know anything about that? Have you thought about
All
that?
I can tell you is from practical experience, and this is not scientific, but last year and this year, if I've got empty double deeps, 8 frames, I'll just put a little some old frames in them, in the top of them, and put 1 frame in the bottom one, and I'll set them out there. And I've had 7 feral swarms move into those boxes, you know, and I assure you that they didn't come from my hives, but I've had 7 in the last 2 years. I had 4 last year and 3 this year that moved into them double deep.
Yeah.
Empty.
Have you got any experience with that, Bill, as far as, 8 frame equipment?
We run 10s, 8s, and 5s. When we do our splits down for nukes, we run a 2 frame feeder, a deep 8 with 6 frames in it. And then when they fill those out, we move the feeder up into a medium. We run a deep medium brood box on all our hives. A deep medium brood box instead of 2 deeps. Because when we go to do splits, it gives us options as to what kind of split we want to do, whether we want to do a Demaray split, or if we want to do a medium split, or if we want to do a regular deep 5 frame split, splitting the nukes off of them for sale.
Right.
It just gives us a lot of options.
Now, when you say a Demaray split, is that where you're just bringing the brood up above the queen excluder so they'll make queen cells?
Yeah, what the Demaray split is, it's you take the old brood box off the bottom board, you put a clean empty one on the bottom, queen excluder, 3 or 4 mediums, queen excluder, and the old brood box goes on the top and the queen's in the bottom.
Now, which that's a normal setup from a Demaray. And now do you put, let's say, 2 brood frames and let's say 2 food frames, let's say a pollen and a nectar frame down in the bottom for her?
I'll give her 2 brood frames with nectar pollen around the brood.
Okay.
And then usually in about a week, they've got the rest of it drawn out.
And you're giving them foundation down there?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Are you talking about 8s or 10s there, Bill?
Either one. Either one.
Yeah.
And then
So
you got to come back. Then you got to come back in 7 days to the top box and kill all your queen cells.
Right. Sure.
And once you do that, they backfill it from the top to the bottom instead of from the bottom to the top.
And that was something that I experimented this year with my honey supers. Now, this is the way I do. I do a modified Demaray.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, where I didn't want all these queen cells upstairs. But then on the other hand, doing it the way you do it, let's say I put let's say drawn comb down there along with those 2 frames of brood. Is the brood open or capped?
All stages. All stages.
All stages. Okay, so all stages. Now, with that, let's say we do it like you're saying, with cap brood and all stages of brood, 2 frames with a queen, and I'll say drawn brood comb, queen excluder, let's say a couple honey supers to start with, and then you got your box up on top. And like you say, come back and then cut out all the swarm cells and stuff, so they are hopelessly queenless up there and they can't make any more cells because of age.
Right.
How do you have to go back down into the bottom box the rest of that honey season or a month or so?
Nope.
Nothing.
They will take care of it themselves. We do not go back into the bottom box because when you start at the top, if they filled that deep box on the top, you're looking at 120 pound box to get it off there if you're in 10 frame. And then you start working your way down. You're lifting honey. You're not lifting brood. You're lifting honey off of there.
Right.
So when we put it together, we make sure that she's got what she needs to get started. And true, the nurse bees are on the top, but the younger forager bees will go back and take care of that brood.
I might have to try that. See, that's the only problem is like your brood frames upstairs are going to get plugged up with honey and all.
Eventually, yeah, they will backfill everything with honey.
But that was enough. Like I say, back to this, the way the bees are storing the honey above the queen excluder. I always thought, that if you put an empty super above the queen excluder and put, let's say you had 2 frames, you had 1 super, they filled it 90%, let's say you under supered, put that frame above that, and that way it's direct contact with the forager bees to store that honey and stuff. And I did an experiment where I went ahead and just put a empty up on top of the filled honey supers, and then I did an under super on the other one, and I found that they filled the top super that was empty faster than they did the one that was directly above the brood chamber with it.
Yeah.
Under supering is actually not as fast as over supering.
Correct.
That's what I found, experiments. And then 2 things is it's faster and it's a whole lot easier. You just take your lid off, put the super on, you're done.
You're done.
And you can go down the line zippity doo dah day, right? Within minutes, you got everything done for the evening or whatever.
And I know there's people out there that don't like to use queen excluders. I mean, let's face it, sometimes it's hard to get bees to go through them, but there's a trick to doing it. If you take a couple frames of brood, and of course you're using mediums for your supers, i.e. a deep medium brood box, you pull a couple of frames of that medium brood, put it in a honey super up top. That draws the bees up because they have a natural instinct to go take care of the brood. That'll draw them through that queen excluder.
All right, we got a question here from Matt. He said, would you over super with foundation?
Yes.
Yes. As long as if you're using 8 frame, Matt, or 10 frame, make sure that it's 8 or 10 frame box. Make sure that it's filled with foundation completely. Don't do a 10 frame box with 9 frame. That's only after you get your frames drawn out and stuff. But yeah, I've dropped foundation super on top, and they'll draw it right out and everything and all that. But so that's what you're doing as far as a deep and a medium type thing. And that one, and to reconfirm that with a Demarest method, whether you do it the way I do it or the way y'all do it, that having that brood is a draw. It draws those bees up through that queen excluder, and it really helps get them to put that honey in the in the honey supers where you want it and everything. It entices, I guess you would call it, and all that kind of stuff. And I found that to be a huge helpful situation because and all. But yeah, my main thing is, I wouldn't mind. I put the brood upstairs. The problem I have with my method is here that I seen this year is that I got to be in there every week, where I'm taking my hive lifter and pulling up the whole stack off to get down in the bottom brood chamber, pulling out the fully capped brood frames if I have them in there, and swapping them up with the one up on top. Whereas your method, which is the original George Demarest method, like you say, you can leave it through the whole honey, the 3 months of our honey season, and you don't have to be digging into that hive and being so evasive. All you need to be doing is keep stacking boxes and everything on that.
Yeah, we're going to be breaking ours down here in the next week or two and pulling honey out of everything. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah. All right. So you don't have any swarming in that situation either, I presume, right?
I have more swarms out of the smaller hives than I do out of the demarays. This year, every time I walked in the yard, the opposite end of it swarmed.
Hey, Keith. No, what I was getting at is when and people talk about, swarms, and I said, I don't have any swarms. And I said, you do a demaray and you give that space for that queen to lay. That's the meaning of space to her.
Yep.
Is, do I have a place to lay? If I run out of a place to lay, then I want to swarm. And all that. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, you're putting in 2 frames of larvae of all stages and eggs and stuff. And with the queen, she's got all that to lay up. And then you got the brood up on top. Then I'm thinking to myself, well, if that brood hatches out, let's say you were doing double deeps, you could actually pull all that comb and everything off the top and just stack honey supers on top, because you got them up there.
Yeah.
You got them started coming up in there to store honey and everything.
Yep.
I don't think you need the brood attraction to continue on through the whole honey flow.
No, you don't. That's why once that brood up there hatches out, because you figure it's going to hatch out in 24 to 26 days, all that brood's going to start hatching, and all the cap brood's going to be hatched out. They're going to start backfilling everything up there with honey.
Yep.
I think I'm just going to do I'm going to do something different next. I'm going to try to do that and see if that doesn't alleviate a lot of work on my part.
But now here's the other side of it that nobody, I think, really realizes. You got to take in consideration that hive is full of bees. And it's a deep, 3 or 4 mediums and another deep, and it's full usually from top to bottom.
Yep.
You're going to have late season splits
Yep.
when you knock this thing down to a winter hive. So
that's the thing that I learned the first year I did I was trying to do single brood chamber where you had normally I run all mediums boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to put all the bees in 2 medium boxes. Well, that didn't work. And I had one of them, I made a mistake. I fed them too much. And that was before the spotted lanternfly. And they didn't have a place to go. And I think I had a nuke swarm and I had a 10 frame swarm. And I called the guy up who was doing this, and he advised me how you do it in Pennsylvania and stuff. And he says, well, this and that. And he said, well, sometimes if you got that many bees, I put the 3rd box back on. I'm like, it's like, what? You didn't tell me the whole story here, So I had all these brood boxes, like, what am I going to do this? I don't want any wax moth to go in there and chew up all my brood comb. And I took off an hour or 2 from work that morning. And that night at 10 o'clock at night, I was loading up a dolly of about 12 medium boxes on there at the time to put out on these hives. And they all got a 3rd box. They all went back to a full size, I'll say double deep style hive. And after that, everything was fine. They all went inside their house, and then they filled up the top box with food when I hit them with sugar water at the time. And so since then, what I tell people is I demarie from the end of March until July 1 after I take my honey supers off. And then I go back to either a double deep hive or 3 mediums. and do it that way.
Yeah,
The other-
in the winter we knock back to a deep medium and at least one super or three mediums is what our winter configuration is.
now that's without a queen excluder, right?
That's without a queen excluder.
All right. So my question is, all right, let's say you have a deep and a medium, or you have a deep and two mediums.
Mm-hmm.
Come springtime, most cases, all those bees and queens are going to be up in those two mediums, and you're going to have an empty deep. Correct?
True. Yep.
So then, all right, you're going to get set up with a demery in that scenario. So here you got your queen up in your mediums, you got your brood up in your mediums, and now you got an empty deep box most cases. So how are you going to arrange all that to where is your deep going to be pulled out of the mix and your two mediums are going to be on the bottom?
No. Typically your queen, when the flow starts, she comes down. Think about a tree full of bees.
Yeah.
Where's the brood? It's on the bottom.
On the bottom.
Honey's on the top. Right?
Right.
So she's going to come down to the bottom box and she's going to start laying in that bottom box. You've already got spring bees, you've already got nurse bees, and they're all going to come down with her. She's going to fill that bottom box with brood and stores. That's the first thing they're going to do in the beginning of the flow. So you take the two mediums off, set them to the side. You find her, you put her in a clip, lay her on top of a brand new box with brand new frames in it.
Right.
You pull two or three out, you put them in that box that she's going to go in. You take that box off, set it to the side, put that new box on the bottom board. All your foragers that are out are going to come into that new box.
Yeah.
Queen excluder, 3 or 4 mediums. I think we ran 4 this year. Queen excluder and that deep. The old deep.
When you're doing, so you're putting all your honey supers on at one time.
Yep. For the dim arrays.
Do you have any hive beetle problems? I don't have big hive beetles in my area primarily, but with all those empty supers on there, do you notice you have any?
No, because our hives are sitting in full sun all day long from sun up to sundown.
Well,
they sit in full sun.
I do the same thing.
And we've got gravel underneath of them, most of them, and diatomaceous earth in it. And that keeps the hive beetle down.
I've got actually got rubber mats. I've got all my hives on individual stands, which you can see there behind me.
Yep.
And
all right, Brian here. He's out in Colorado, Flower Street Honey. What's the second queen excluder necessary for?
Because you want that queen excluder on the top, because inevitably, no matter how well you search that top box,
you're gonna miss a
cell. You're gonna miss something because you're gonna be standing on a step stool to get to that bottom box to check it. And you're going to get tired of standing on that step stool and you're going to rush through that box and you're going to miss one.
Yeah, but being a virgin queen and she's about the size of a worker almost, is she going to be able to slip through that queen excluder at that time?
No.
Okay. I mean, I have heard this where you do the double queen excluder thing.
Yeah. That's the only reason we do it, because if we miss it, we want that safety net, because we don't want her ending up in the bottom or ending up down on top of the queen excluder on the brood nest.
Sure.
Or laying up your honey supers either.
Supers, yeah.
Yeah.
Plastic or a metal, Bill?
Metal. The round bar.
That's what I
The plastic queen excluders are sharp on the edges, and they will cut wings. They will damage wings. They will damage legs, and I just don't want to deal with that.
Yeah,
I
agree.
like the guy that I'm helping last year. He had bought somebody out and had plastic ones, and I'm like, I don't like them damn things. I says, like, cut out, like you say, where the cutout is, where the groove is, it's sharp.
Yep.
And I could just see all that scraping and everything in there and all that stuff compared to a metal one.
Yep. Now,
know.
in the store, do I sell the plastic ones? Yep, I do. Because people want them.
Sure.
I will give them advice when they come in and say, I want a plastic queen excluder. I'll give them advice, but I don't push things on people. It's, if they want it, they're going to buy it, and I'll give them advice. And if they still want to buy it, okay, I'll sell it to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I will give you advice.
Yeah. Now, Brad, he's up in Canada. He's got some plastic, but they're smooth on the edges. I don't.
It might be the manufacturer that's doing it, but I know that the manufacturer that I get my white plastic ones, I think you saw them on the shelf.
Yeah.
They are trapezoid shaped, and they are sharp on the edges on the cutout.
Right. And all that. Yeah, that's, like I say, I was quite surprised how they like to go all the way to the top and fill from the top down, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Brad says he uses the Gray Man Lake ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Nikot ones. I don't think I've
Yep.
seen a. I don't think I've ever seen a. I haven't really never looked at them that well. I do know that Bob Denny talked about, what was it? He was talking about queen excluders in one of his videos. I don't know what it was, plastic or what it was, metal, but the width of the slot was off where the queens were able to slip through.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, metal that he was actually using a micrometer, a vernier caliper to measure all that stuff. So
Yeah.
But now, yeah, definitely for me, I'm going to be over supering instead of under supering, which is way easier. And of course, like Brad there, he is commercial, and along with Doug, Brad's in Manitoba, Doug's in Saskatchewan, and they're not going to under super. They're just going to plop them on there and go.
Yep.
And finding out what I did find this year, it's like, yeah, they do it the right way as far as I'm concerned. It's the way the bees like it. To me is the right way. Whatever
Right.
best suits the bees. And that kind of stuff. Yeah, the metal ones can bend if you might not see it. Yeah, for sure. And that's one thing that when I first started, I had a lot of queen excluders metal that were wooden bound. I just liked them. And I have some that are just straight metal ones. But I find with the metal ones, I'm very careful. I just want to, if I'm prying the box up off of it, I try to stay right on the very edge of that queen excluder, not get in there and do any prying and everything. I do like the wooden ones because of that, where I've got wood to pry on instead of just a metal, being very careful with it. But they've gotten so expensive. I don't know what, I haven't bought any. I hadn't need to, but aren't they, even metal ones are what, around $20, I think now?
Ours are 11 or 11.50.
Okay, there you go, folks. Cheapest man in town. But anyway, but now I'm gonna have to try that method of yours and see if I don't like that better.
Yeah. Next year when I get ready to do them, come on down here and we'll go through it. And that way you get your hands in it.
Yeah, I'm a much more better visual learner. Square Bee Farms Mike, he wants to know, is the increase in honey significant enough to make it worth all the extra effort? for the
Oh
setup?
yeah. Yeah, it's worth it. Plus the increase in your bee population too, because out of the Demeray split, you'll get at least at a minimum of 4 late season splits that can be held as overwintered.
Yeah.
You just have to drop a queen in them so they'll overwinter, and then of course nukes around here are going for 185 a nuke. So 4 times 185, that's money back into your apiary the following spring.
Yeah. Now, Darren here, the Pennsylvania beekeeper, I just watched. He's a friend of mine up there around State College, PA. We get to talking about Demery. Of course, I'm one of the ones that kind of pushes the idea behind it because I think it's a great idea because you do increase your honey production and I pretty much alleviate any swarming problems.
Yeah.
You know.
And on your swarming.
Anyway, what I was getting at, Darren just put a video out. Everybody can watch it. He did a late season's Demery, late as far as the honey flow in his area. He had your normal setup, had a honey super on top, nothing. So he went ahead and he was showing in his video where he did a Demery. And I think, Darren, you said you came back a week or 2 later and drawed the wax out and filled the box up. It was a medium box, but I think he waxed it up good and heavy, as far as the frames go, but they drawed the wax out and filled it. And he made him a believer right then and there.
Oh, yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So, and like I say, he shows that on his videos and stuff like that. And yes, for me in my area, 50 pounds of honey per 10 frame hive is more or less the average. And last year, I think I averaged at least 80 pounds per hive. So I got almost doubled the amount. I got extra 30 some pounds.
Yep.
And last year I had good bee population. That's the only thing that trying to do the Demery and pulling the brood up like what we're trying to do is that I had used Apis Biologic and I had more bees than I've ever seen in my life. They were overflowing like a volcano. And I tried to do it like I normally done it. Of course, I wasn't thinking on my feet, and I don't usually get to do that. Sometimes I have to do a Monday morning quarterback type thing, say, no, I need to do it a different way because of the volume of bees. And hey, Tom. And so that's the only thing is trying to find the brood frames and getting them in a box. Let's say if it's a 3 medium situation where I'm leaving 2 mediums, a queen excluder, honey supers, and a medium up on top for an attractant for the bees to come up. I might have to do that process for having only brood frames in the bottom. Might have to go through that a couple of times. What my plans was this year before I got old queens and problems that way was that I was going to put my honey supers on, at least 2, maybe 3, put that brood box up on top, draw the bees up through the honey supers, take that unit off. And instead of having bees up in the air and everywhere and on the ground and all that, I have them contained in a box and then go back down into my supers on the bottom and go through the situation that way. That was my game plan, but it didn't work out that way this year. I had old queens, and that was the main issue and all that. So I got pretty much everybody's requeen, all brand new 24 queens, and I got a couple of them out there that you get the brand new queen with a nuke or whatever, and it still have issues with that nuke. Either she didn't get accepted or something went wrong, and I had actually. I had a situation like you said. I kind of missed those cells on the top of that Demery, and I pulled that frame up, and I got these queen cells with fresh lids hanging down. And okay, we got some virgins here someplace. And I
Yep.
had just shook one of these bees off into this one hive. I mean, the bees off the frame. Like, I shouldn't have done that. And so darn if I didn't find 3 virgins on that one frame and captured them all. And I used them all in all the different hives and that I were queenless. And 2 out of 3 took. And then I had another nuke that I had inadvertently transferred a queen over into another nuke, and I was transferring brood, trying to equalize. And so anyway, I had a beautiful frame of this really nice queen that I inadvertently transferred over. She was laying up a storm, and she had this beautiful frame of a lot of eggs and all stages of larvae. And I just plopped that in there and came back in 2 or 3 weeks, and they up and running with a nice queen. And I got another one out there that was one of those versions. And for some reason, it didn't make it back, I guess. I put another frame of eggs in that. You got good bee population, but I said, well, it's only been a little over a week. And I'm like, I ain't touching it for another 2 weeks or more to inspect and make sure that I have a hatch, at least a virgin hatch, or maybe just leave it alone for a while and make sure she's laying in there and things like that. But and all. So JW, what else you doing in your bees? Anything else except for just kind of letting them sit there because of the
hot weather? I'm not gonna don't plan on touching them again. Other than I've got some splits and some what I call growth hives that I'm feeding right now. Right. Other than feeding,
I do have one of the hives out there that I had put that virgin in, and I checked it, and she's laying up a storm. But as you know, it's things that I tell some of my newer beekeepers in the clubs. I said, what don't you see in the things, and they're always looking for the bees and the brood and all that. I said, well, what about other things that should be there, but you don't see it? And that is the larvae swimming in lots of jelly, or is there nectar in the combs, around the brood area and pollen and stuff like that? And I didn't really see a lot of nectar. And of course, the field, and they were growing. They're growing. They're trying. The field force is not completely there. So I went ahead and I had some sugar. I went and put a couple quart jar on it, and they dropped 3/4 of it down. I forgot about checking it today. Yeah. I'll go out there tomorrow after work and check it, and probably there's another quart sitting in there for me to switch it over, and I'll probably give them another quart so she can keep on laying, and so I could put another medium box up on top of that, for expansion.
Yeah. I've got 9 nukes that I'm feeding, and I've got them all built up into double deeps now, 5-frame nukes. I feed them. They're going through a quart a day, even right now. I also experimentally, just to see what, trying to see what was going on with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2, I call them robin stations, feeding stations that I use the AP23 from Daydant for artificial pollen. And I put some of them out, and they're not touching the pollen, but I did pour a gallon of about 1 to 1.5 sugar water in a bird feeder,
right.
away from the actual, and the bees attacked it. They took that gallon in about an afternoon.
Well, obviously, it tells you one thing: you got natural pollen coming in.
Yeah.
And your nectar flow has come to a screeching halt.
Yeah, it's slowing down. That's what I just did as a test to see. And
it's a good test.
And that all happened this week.
Yeah, it's a good test. I've seen other videos in past years where a guy will take a honey frame, and let's say maybe more or less uncapped honey frame, and tie it up on a fence post or something, a good ways away, and see whether it gets attacked. Or if it puts it out there, let's say the honey flows on, they won't touch it. You might have 10 bees on it, but they're ignoring it because they're going to sourwood honey or something like that, if they're in the mountains. And that's where this guy was. He was in the mountains, the Carolinas or someplace. And but he said, he was showing on a video where Soon as the flow stopped, you said, see there, the flow stopped, there are, a pound of bees are on that one frame.
Yep.
And all that, but the sugar water's a lot cheaper now. Let's see, what was it? I'm going to ask something here. What was it? Can't think
You
of what
haven't
it was.
seen your moment, are you? I have those on occasion.
We all do, J-Dub.
Yeah, that's what it was, Bill. You were saying that what was your feeding? W something another?
T55 fructose.
Or that's corn syrup, right?
Fructose.
Right. High fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, corn syrup.
Okay.
And and when we feed nukes with it, we cut it down to 1-to-1.
Right.
Same ratio as sugar.
Yeah.
But when we take honey, we'll feed it straight.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we'll drop a little bit of honeybee healthy in it so they can smell it and they'll go to it in the feeders. And we use frame feeders.
Do you use all frame feeders? Is that what
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. We do.
Yeah, that's something I don't really use a frame feeder a lot now. Like the quart jar, I'll put a medium over on top of that high. I'll even close it, and I don't want any robbing with that situation and all that. But and then when I'm feeding in the fall, that's when I do top high feeders. I just started with that. That's what I keep on going with.
Yeah, and the reason we use the frame feeder is because if we leave the medium box on, it's a medium mother load, which is almost 2 gallons of fluid, and they'll consume it, almost all of it, in a week.
Oh, sure.
And then we feed once a week. So it's just easier with the number of hives that we have to use the in-frame feeder.
Mm-hmm. And then you're going out there with a tank and a pump, and I guess I'm sure
Gallon jugs.
really.
We're old school down here in the valley.
Well, I mean, now for me, it works fine because, it's like I've told other folks on the show here. Number one, I have a forklift. Okay, so I can raise things up high and gravity flow or pump, whatever. And then number two is you can see the building right there, and there's another 80 feet going that direction of hives.
Yep.
And
then, Charlie, go this way. The other way.
Right, that way. Yeah. Goes that way. It's 80 feet. The building's 80 feet long that way. There's more hives down that way. And then down this way is my all my production hives. Not all of them now. There's more towards that way. But anyway, it's a flat ground. So when I put the feeding tank in the back of my truck and it's all strapped in and everything, I plug in it. Last year I got my brother and he helped me wire it up to where I plug it into the trailer brakes receptacles and hooked it up to where all I got to do is turn on my parking lights, and I got infinite juice to my pump. And I just go down that line with that pickup truck and move it ahead and feed 4 or 5 hives, whether they're nukes or 10 framers, and just pump it off. And it's like, this is the way to go. It's easy peasy. But some people don't have hives accessible to that kind of a situation.
Right.
Let me ask you guys what you do. What do you do after you pull your actual honey supers that you're taking your honey off the hives? When you do that the final time, do you put a super or a wet super or something back on for the bees in case or you just leave them, draw them clear down to the brood frames?
What we do is
I'll be back.
It depends on how many honey supers are on the hive.
Mhm.
We leave at least one at a minimum, sometimes two. Depends on the bee population and the size number of boxes we have to take off the hive. Once we extract, we'll distribute all those empty boxes and extracted frames that are still wet back onto the hives and over top of the inner cover. They'll go up, they'll clean it up, they'll pull all the remaining honey out of it and bring it down and clean the wax up. And then we go back and pull all of those off, freeze the frames, and store the boxes and store the frames in Rubbermaid totes.
Yeah. Got you. I was just curious to what other people done. I'd never asked before, but I try to leave extra for the bees and take the excess, so when
Yeah, because winters around here are so funny. You don't know what you're going to get in the winter. So you try to plan for a little bit extra on the hive for them. But you got to get enough to where you've got honey for what you want to do for retail and whatever.
that's no big deal to me. I don't sell just a lot of honey. I give most of mine away anyway. So I'm not into it for the money. I just like getting stung.
There you go. That's the fun part of it, is getting stung.
Well, I take all of my honey supers off, extract it. I set them out in my backyard next to the house, which is quite a ways, let's say 300 or 400. I don't know, at least 300 feet away, if not more.
Yeah.
And they have to fly to it like it's a nectar source.
Sure.
And they'll a couple hours, they've cleaned them up. And then I have freezers in the basement, and I store all my honey supers in the freezer. And then if it's a medium, they get the third medium back on, and usually spotted lanternfly fills that up. And then a week after Labor Day, that's when I put the top high feeders on, and I start hitting them with I use those Man Lake style feeders on the 10 framers, and I feel, because of the size tank that I have, I'll give them one side of that feeder, about 2 gallons. And I just go down the road and just keep feeding. And most of the time I got to have a batch cooling down and a batch in the truck. So I can just, cause when you give them the first batch of sugarwood, they'll have that sucked down in 6 hours.
Yeah.
Easy, and I find they'll have a super of lanternfly honey that I leave on there, and I'll feed them another 4 to 6 gallons.
Yeah.
On top of that, to where they get to the point where they just stop, eating. And then I'm good for the rest of the winter.
And late summer, from late summer on, when I go to feeding, I just use gallon plastic on top, gallon buckets. Some 2 gallons, but mostly gallons.
Right.
So when do y'all start feeding pollen patties in the spring?
I don't unless I have to. If I've got a weak hive and they're not helping build up some brood, I'll add on a patty or 2 here and there, but I don't use them unless I have to myself. That's just me.
I normally didn't. I kind of got out of feeding pollen altogether. I was doing a lot of powder, and they were just filling the hives up full of pollen powder frames. And then the bees don't use it. It's a waste of frames as far as I'm concerned. So then I went to feeding pollen patties in the springtime. Only since Nobby and all that, where you're getting some rocket fuel style, just to experiment with that. And I find February, you got to get out there in February, but by March, maples are starting to give out some pollen and stuff.
Yep.
And after that, it's might as well just take it and put it in the freezer and be done with it.
Yeah. So we back it up 45 days from April 1st.
Yeah.
And we start dropping pollen patties then, and which is around the 15th February, 14th, 15th, 16th February, we start dropping pollen patties. So that way that queen's kicked off laying, and we've got a hive full of bees come April 1st.
Yeah.
That are ready to work.
That's right. And I usually set my demery up
Soon after.
Yeah.
before that, about the last week of March, if the weather's just right and all.
Yeah. If the weather, well, we set ours up this year to middle of April because of the warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold.
Right.
So, we set ours up a little bit later this year.
Right. And about, I mean, that was like, what was it, about 2 years ago? It was cold all the way up till like the end of May almost.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a horrible year.
It was.
You couldn't get nothing done. It was like people say, how about Queens? I said, it's too cold.
Yeah, we delivered packages that year, and the day we delivered packages, it was nice and sunny and bright and warm. The next day, it was in the 20s and raining.
Yeah. But that's about around, I don't know, like you say, around the 10th or the 15th of February, I find. I need to get it. I found I had to put it on earlier if they really wanted to utilize it. Because if you waited till March, it was almost over with because of the maple bloom in the area.
Mm-hmm. Well, Charlie, my phone's dying. I got one quick thing for you.
Okay.
I know when you were at the store, you and I discussed that I was going to set up a YouTube channel on Monday nights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming. Putting the finishing touches on the equipment and everything now. So I'm looking at probably September 1st, kicking that off on Monday nights, starting at 8:00.
Okay.
So,
and, do you have your classes, or I mean, I know most of it's beginner stuff. Are you having any intermediate to advanced type stuff that you might?
I will be. I'm going to do a beginner class this fall. I'm going to do one in January. Both of my beginner classes are 8 weeks because it's just a lot of information that people, if you try to do it in 2 days, you get the information out there, but how much do they remember?
Well,
you can do it in 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. How much do they remember? I do it in 8 weeks. They tend to remember a little bit more of it. Yeah. And then I'm going to do another one, do one in August for 8 weeks, and then one in January for 8 weeks. And then next spring, I'm going to redo the splits, do all the splits. And then we will do spring hive maintenance, spring hive, getting ready for your honey flow and moving on. And we've also got, through the Virginia State Beekeepers Association, we are doing a pilot program to get the apprentice beekeeper level out to the bee clubs to be taught at the bee club level. So we're working on that now. And finishing up that pilot program, and then we'll move on to hopefully move into the journeyman level next year, doing the same thing.
Yeah, now like you're talking about your bee, your beginner classes, we do a 6 week class here, and then they can't. Is there so much information coming at them in order for them to grasp everything? Well, I think 8 weeks. Yeah. Trying to do it in 1 or 2 day session, there's no way anybody can get that kind of stuff done.
There's a couple of bee clubs in Virginia that do it, but they also have the ability to do a lot of field days.
Well, that or being able to hook up mentors with them, which is a huge help.
Exactly.
Huge help.
And of course, there's nothing wrong with the way they do it, and they are successful with it. So,
yep. All right. Well, good. I'm glad that you made it on and everything. And like I said, the hive tool's working great for me. And hopefully the next video, I'm not sure what video I'm going to be making, but I'll be demonstrating it on the video.
Okay.
And all that. And
You gotta go out.
might be coming down your way. I'm not sure. You never know. Towards the fall, might be going, towards Floyd or something. Oh yeah. About a quick question. The lady who was there, who was picking up bees, queens, was she from the Floyd area? They can't, she had a Floyd hat on or something or at least I had a Floyd hat on. She was, I don't know, tall gal with a kid, and she got 2 or 3 queens at the time. I was wondering whether she drove that far to your place.
Yes, she was from Roanoke,
Okay.
and that's 3.5 hours south of me.
She drove 3.5 hours from Roanoke to your place.
Yes,
to get queens.
to get queens.
You're the only guy around in that area.
You've got the Man Lake dealer in
Shepherdstown.
You've got Dedant in Chatham, and then you've got a Man Lake dealer in Scottsville. All of these sell queens, but I guess people like my queens.
Well, that, and I guess it's just like you say, you service the area with not just queens, but with all kinds of supplies, hive supplies, and it's and then you also deliver, which I find that amazing because most people don't do that at all unless it's by mail. And that shipping, we talk about that here on the channel, is so high, and that kind of thing. No, I just find it's great to have somebody like you in wherever in your area where you can service and showing that people come from a great distance to your shop in order to get your products and stuff like that.
Well, the other thing of it is, Charlie, we price our products, and the products that we sell are priced as to what I would want to pay for it if I had to go buy it.
Right.
So, and talking about the Enel hives, I can't keep them on the shelf. I ship them all over the United States.
Right.
So and I do ship all over the United States. I won't ship to Alaska, and I won't ship to Hawaii. That's just a lot of paperwork and red tape to do it, to go to Alaska, because it's got to go through Canada to get to Alaska. So that just doesn't always work.
Right. So if anybody's, and you got a website, it's shenandoahbeesupply.com.
Yep. And a Facebook page.
And a Facebook page.
Facebook page. We do a lot of advertising on the Facebook page for classes, things like that. The other thing we're working on is putting our beginner classes and advanced classes on the website so they can be done at somebody's own pace.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
all right,
well, thank you for letting me come on, Charlie.
Jason wants to know, where are we out of the delivery circle? I think so. I don't think you're going to drive 3 hours to Baltimore and all that. But now Bill will definitely
I'll meet halfway.
Meet you halfway, or he'll mail you what you need if it's small enough. He mailed me. I needed a hive tool. He was out on a delivery situation. I was coming up the interstate, and they said, "Hey, we'll mail it to you, no problem."
Yeah.
Sure enough, 3 days later or so, here it is on the front porch. So, but if you're going down Interstate 81, he's only quarter mile off the interstate.
Yep.
And very accessible. So, no, come on back next week or whenever you can make it, and then let me know when you're Monday night. Well, that's gonna be in September.
Look
Yeah,
forward to your streams there, Bill. We'll look for you on Monday nights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the name of it's going to be Bees All Day.
Bees all day. All right.
Yep.
And then Bill's going to be at Nobby, and I know JW is going. I'm going. And he's got his table and stuff set up there. And so we'll have a big time. Maybe we'll all get together and go out to dinner in the evening, like a lot of us do here.
Sounds like a plan.
So, like Brian from Flower Street and all of us get together and check everything out and talk about bees and whatever. So,
Yep.
all right. Well, thank you much. Good to see you,
All right.
and glad you stopped in. And I'm glad you got some video to work with.
All right. Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. See you now.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Night.
Night. Well, that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
He's a good fellow, likes to talk bees, and even I learned something tonight about the Demery method and everything and all that stuff. Tom says we can have a New Year's Eve dinner. Yeah, we can do that. Maybe have Ricky Rourke and we'll all get together and go to that little restaurant, that they went to the last time. I got there. I had a hard time getting home. I got off. I was, got up that clover leaf and I was like, well, do I go this way or that way? And it's like, I don't want to go to the airport and all that kind of stuff. And all that kind of thing. But, now, I mean, he explained that the normal Demery, kind of clarified it for me. And, I had thought about it with putting those just the queen down on the bottom where I wouldn't have to go down, and it would save me more hive time, digging into the hive. Sure. And like he says, the only thing is about the queen cells, but you have to watch that type of thing. And even though I have a hive lifter and all that, but then it gets to the point where I'm thinking to myself, after they're all hatched, what's the sense of leaving that box up on top? Just take the box off and set it off to the side.
I don't. I sometimes make splits off of it too and use the
queen cells. Utilize the queen cells.
I have in the past. I didn't bring that up, but I do that some. Yes,
that's right. So, and all that.
And I'm like Tom mentions there, I also use a double screen board for this, basically the same purpose, on top.
Right.
So,
but, that's, I really enjoyed that talk because I even, learned a lot of stuff. And then he reconfirmed what I already talked about as far as just keep popping the supers up on top and don't worry about under supering and doing all that extra lifting. And
I do a little under supering. I have pretty good luck doing under supering. Seems like to me they draw it up.
I went both ways, and the one nice thing about it over supering is that you can always just check that top. Did they fill it yet? Yes, they filled it. Okay, let's put another one on.
Yeah.
And let it go at that, and you don't have to disturb the bees as much. Whereas, I do have the hive lifter now, and I can go in there and pop, let's say the full supers. I usually put a little F on the side there of them, so I know to pull them off and then check that bottom super to see whether or not they're packing it away. But I found that they are always putting the honey upstairs and not so much downstairs. Mm-hmm. You would think it would be the opposite direction. Thank you, Robert, for the super sticker. And all that. Hopefully Robert's getting his queen issues straightened up and all that. And Tom says, let's put that up for everybody to see. Get 80 to 100 pounds average and over top
top supers. I guess that's what he's saying.
You're saying that you're putting the empty supers on top, right, Tom? And all that. So he top supers. And then Hale, Paul, Yep, that's what he meant.
Yeah. That was pretty.
And
I don't
Roberts
think it'd be a difference.
lost a dozen queens in the last 3 weeks. That's a bad situation. I guess the best thing for you to do is either get queens or just recombine all the hives with queen right hives and let it go with that for the year. And then I always reevaluate at this time of the year while pulling deep honey supers.
Yeah.
I don't really want to have many hives as I think I do.
I've
Yeah,
already.
I have to agree with you there. It's myself, Paul. I don't know. Like I say, I reevaluated my operation to where I'm going towards more honey sales instead of nuke sales because of the aggravation of dealing with a lot of people and trying to get things done at the right time of the year. I mean, a lot of like last year, I think it rained so much. I said, they're going to swarm on me if I don't get in there and get them out of here. And I'm trying to keep beekeeping fun is what I'm trying to do and also self-sustainable / profitable. And so that's where I went from 12 to 16 honey hives, and I went from 20 nukes down to 12. And overall, the amount of hives that I was running the last several years around 34 hives total. And then I went down to like 32, and now I'm down to 28. And I was worried about my nukes, how many nukes. I said, nah, I'm like, okay, we don't need all these nukes. We can just, next year, I want to get back into queen rearing with her, and really do some serious queen rearing. I got enough mating boxes for 30 hives, 30 mating boxes, which I only have to do that 3 or 4 months out of the year. And then I'm done with it. And all that. So, and so that's my goal plan for next spring is to do the hunt. And hopefully I'm going to have great hives with great queens and have lots of honey. And I'm going to take my nukes and use them as insurance hives for myself and also use the resources out of them to make a good, strong cell builder and to fill those 2-frame mating boxes with bees so I can drop either queen cells or I'm going to just go with virgins. I think I like virgins. I know the virgins is in there. Now, whether she makes it back or not,
No, you got the same gamble with the queens, and if you go that route, I mean with the cells, if you go that route, Charlie, they got.
now the problem I have is tinkeritis with cells.
Yeah.
Cells is that, I got to go in there and find the virgin. Well, if I put them in and keep them in my incubator and then get them in the hive ASAP, as soon as I find that they've come out, then I can walk them into the hive and I know they're in there. Now, DC says self-sustainability and profitability
Speaks.
is a tall order. Not for me.
Yeah.
I'm self-sustainable not this year because I pre-sold my nukes. If it wasn't for that, I would have took my own nukes and restocked my hives and saved myself a ton of money and all that. But I was not able to do that. I kept my bargain with selling the nukes to these folks, and that's how I had to buy some nukes in order to restock myself.
Yeah.
And the queens, I had to buy fresh queens. So I mean, I had to basically spend some money in order to survive this year. And and then Robert says they say new queens don't swarm. He says I disagree, and I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's different.
Depends
And
on
the,
the circumstances, I'd say. But I'm like you, Charlie. I did a bunch of splitting this spring. I got up to 51, and I did nope. That's way too many. And I gave 18 away. I'm down to 33, and I don't want over 30 to 35 hives. That
hey,
takes
honey, be
five
live.
of it.
Good to see you.
So. But and like Charlie, if I ever get to the top of the hole, I always end up spending more than I take in because I don't sell a lot of stuff.
I sell a lot of honey. That's that's an easy sale for me. And all, and like I say, I had people coming in from Baltimore, which is, they're coming out of their way. Of course, they were going up the road past my house. Hey, Russell, and to get beef, grass-fed beef that's locally raised and grown, and they saw the honey sign, so they stopped in and got 3 pounds of honey. So hopefully that'll be another new customer for me, and all that, and then like I say, I'm trying to keep it fun, and also my numbers of hives. Something I noticed last year is that after I had pulled my honey supers, you pull your honey supers and then you put your, let's say, the third medium back on, or let's say you're going to put your two deeps back together as your winter configuration. And then for me, I'll go in late July and I'll put in Aprivar and stuff. Thank you, Brian. I thought it was a great chat tonight too. A lot of good information for myself and for everybody else. And I didn't have to touch them hives as much as far as the honey production hives, where it seemed like to me my nukes needed more to make sure that they're not going to swarm and and all that kind of stuff. And then I always was flipping back from one week. I looked at my nukes. The next week I would look at my honey hives and stuff like that. And I also noticed, today is, I think it was either yesterday or today. I always thought it was the 21st. Maybe it swaps back and forth. Today is the longest day of the year. Now, from now on, our days are going to get shorter. And that means our queens are not going to lay as much. They're going to start slowing down, and you shouldn't have the swarm situation as much. And I could go for 2 or 3 weeks without looking at those honey hives because I knew the medication was on board for the mites, and you just kind of left them. And I said, I didn't have to, it was a lot less work. So that's why, and also the dealing with the public was a lot less when it came to honey sales. So that's why I switched things around. And I really do enjoy grafting queens. That's kind of like, it's kind of like raising a beautiful garden of vegetables where you plant the seed and let's say the tomato plants come up, the corn plants come up, and then you got all this beautiful corn and tomatoes and stuff that you can eat. And that's kind of like with the queens. You go out there, you graft, you put it in the cell builder. 6 days later, you got these beautiful looking cat queen cells. And to me, I look at it as a game. It's like, okay, I put 30 grafts in there. Now, what's going to be my percentage? Is the bees going to win, i.e., meaning the fact that I messed up drafting, or am I going to win and I'm going to get 90% acceptance rate? Let's say 29 out of 30 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And hey, Tom and Melissa, and that kind of stuff. And that's, to me, that's the game part of it for me. And then when you put your cells in the incubator, then you got these beautiful looking virgin queens coming out, and then you let them go into the mating hives, and you come back in a couple of weeks, and you got these beautiful broods, cat brood patterns and stuff. I'm like, hey, I helped develop that queen. and everything. And that's what really makes it for me, so that's what I'm going to try to do.
I do some of it, but boy, my old man eyes are getting to the point it's getting to be a struggle for me on the, with
Well,
the grafting tool.
I do have to use reader glasses and magnification unit when I am grafting.
Yeah.
A lot of people put an emphasis on the grafting part, which maybe it is harder for some people. I know the one young guy I was teaching, he didn't need anything. His eyes were sharp. He said, I asked him, don't you need these here, magnification lenses? Nope. I can see him. Zip, zip, zip. He was like 80 some percent. Hey, Clay, thank you.
I used to be able to do that, but not anymore. My old eyes have gone bad on me.
And all that. So,
I
get several calls here. Hey, you got queens, because they know that I do queens, or I had it in the last 3 years, but I ran out of time and ran out of resources to do queens. So I'm going to go the other way.
I got a question for you, Charlie, and any of the people in the chat. If anybody, what's a good incubator? My old incubator's shot, and I looked online today and I couldn't find anything that looked like it suited me. What are you guys using for incubators?
I have a homemade. I use the top part of the freezer part of my of a refrigerator with a light and an Inkbird timer, controller with a temperature controller.
Yeah.
And I just use that. Go and look at my videos on that. It'll show you.
Okay.
And that's the
I've
cheapest.
got 3 of those.
If you don't have that, then go to Tractor Supply and get yourself a chicken egg incubator.
I'd actually like to have one that controls the humidity and the temperature. It said a reptile incubator. That's an Amazon job. I looked at those today, Via. I didn't know if they'd work or not.
Yeah, you can do that too. You can either do a heat lamp or a reptile thing. And then Brian said, I sold my battery. Yeah, I sold his battery this spring. Yeah, that's right. I did. I did it because I promised it, because that was promised at probably the end of the previous year to a lot of folks. But I wasn't expecting to have a catastrophe. But now I know. Now I'm going to be on a queen replacement schedule every 2 years or / honey cycles.
And watch those. If she's not doing it, I can go ahead and replace her anyway, Charlie.
Well, I'll tell you, it's like I was looking. When was it? Recently here. I went out there and I was just looking at honey supers, but you could also tell bee population where, I'm expecting to have honey supers completely full of bees. If you got honey supers completely full of bees, and I'm talking about covered where you can't see the frames, that's a honey producing hive.
Yeah.
If you have honey supers that have bees just in the seams, that's a hive that's not going to produce much honey for you.
Yeah.
If you have just them on 3 or 4 frames on the top, you're only going to get about a half a crop out of that hive, So I've gotten to be Robert says go with the Inkbird. He likes that one the best. He's got one that's Wi-Fi. I'm not quite that fancy. But I have really, because of this year and because of stuff I learned in the previous year, as far as the amount of bees in a hive, I have yeah, Paul says his wife's the old queen she's holding on to. Yeah, well, it costs you a lot of money to replace her.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to become really critical. I got a couple hives out there right now that is like population wise is like, it's okay, but not booming compared to some other queens that are in other hives. And even though they're all 20, 24 queens, that doesn't really mean that each queen is going to be you know, a, a home run. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ray there. Let's see. Bring up Ray Midland. Hey, Ray. Bill sells some really good queens. I would highly recommend you try one of his queens. Yeah, I'm always game for. I had talked to Bill about it when I had stopped by that day, and he was talking about they had gentleness for the first 2 years, and I said, well, that's all. I'm going to keep them anyway. They were great honey producers, and which I'm sure they're producing a lot of bees or worker bees, and um, they do have sort of I think it's a mite trait. It was something about
Yes. Yeah.
Russians, and there was a genetic trait about his bees that he was talking about and all that. So, and like if I wanted to get queens or whatever, I could go down there in a day, down and back, easy. Let me see if I can go here to the map and.
What I wish some of these queen breeders would do would be to breed up a fluorescent green queen, so I could find them without straining my old man eyes every time I wanted to find my queens in the hives. You think there's any chance anybody doing that?
I doubt it. I'm trying to figure.
Quality on I don't know.
Let's see.
Cheap run of the mill queens. DC is saying he don't want any more of them. I don't know how you tell the difference up front. When you buy them.
Right. But from Woodstock to my house, I-66 now. I-70. Yeah, that's 2.5 hours. It's basically 150 miles.
No,
So
that's not bad
it's
at
about
all.
150 miles one way. So that's 2 hours. 50 miles is an hour. I miles will call it 3 hours.
Yeah, you can be down and
You can
back.
do that. You can be there in 3 hours time. You could be, it could be a 1 day trip.
Yeah.
With me talking, it'll be a 2 day trip.
Yeah.
You might make and Woodstock does have they've got a
Good eating places.
They have 2 hotels right there in town, a Holiday Inn and a Hampton, because I've stayed there coming home a few times. And
Hey, Carl.
so yeah, go down and come back, no problem.
He seemed very knowledgeable. I never met the man before, but he seemed very knowledgeable.
He came on one of our winter shows, and I looked him up. I think he might have had like Shenandoah Bee Supply on his name thing, and I looked him up. And then, like I say, when I went down here about a month ago, down to Alabama, I stopped in. I spent an hour and a half there and talking to him, and he's got over 50 years experience. Started out, I think, when he was a teenager with his father. They've all, had a family that had always had bees and stuff like that, and very knowledgeable. And he seems to be, like I say, he's got a bigger building there. He went from a little teeny 800 square foot building to this, I'll say 10,000 square feet. I didn't see it, but there's a room in the inn where he can use is a classroom. And then he has his, you know, the stock room and the small showroom and stuff. And it was very nice. And he was talking about his clientele within the Shenandoah Valley, like the one lady, you know, driving from Roanoke, you know, that was a good ways away, you know.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not that bad because you just jump on the 81 and shoot right straight up. And then he also goes, he calls it going across the mountain over let's see, more into central Virginia, or I'll say the eastern shore of Virginia type of stuff area, and that kind of stuff, and all that. So anyway, well, guys, it's we've been going for 2.5 hours, and I got to get up and go to work tomorrow, and everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the live chat down, and hope everybody had a good time, and hope everybody was had some, you know, good information, especially with Bill talking about the way he does a demery. I know I did learn a lot from him, and that kind of stuff. Something that I'm going to try out definitely next year. Try to do it maybe his way, and maybe not have to, you know, go into my hives as much. So until next time, we'll see y'all next Friday, as far as I know, at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and everybody have a great time. Hopefully, we'll all be able to get into our hives with not as much heat, and hopefully, I'm going to be able to get into the hives and do some honey extraction and stuff like that. So,
Yep, likewise.
all right. Well, see y'all later.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.